officially July, which means it is time to talk training camp. What is going on, y'all? Faiz Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, NFL here to talk about the Chicago Bears. So if you're a Bears fan, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button down below. Make sure to follow me on all my social media platforms, guys, and make sure you hit the bell icon so you're notified every time I drop a new video. Let's get into it. All right, so as I mentioned, we're officially in July, which means it is the month of training camp. Training camps officially kick off this month. So I'm going to go through all the details about training camp for the Bears and talk about, the positional battles that we're going to see this year in training camp, the ones that I'm looking forward to, talk about everything else in between. And folks, get hyped because this is the last month of the year without some form of NFL football until at least March of 2022. That's nuts to me. I can't wait. It's going to be a great season. I'm looking forward to it. All right, so with that being said, let's talk about training camp. When does training camp officially kick off? It kicks off at the end of the month, July 27th. That is the official date for training camp. And the fun thing this year is that I believe all teams are launching training camp around the same time. That usually doesn't happen. And so this year that's going to happen. The Bears are going to be at Hallis Hall for training camp in Lake Forest. And that is going to take place. We're going to have fans this season, thankfully, which is going to be very, very fun. I don't have all the details, obviously, on, the capacity constraints, if there are any, or if it's just going to be a full stadium of fans that are going to be able to watch training camp. But I do know that there are going to be fans this year. Last year, we had no fans. This year, we got fans. All right. So we mentioned the start date. We mentioned, where it's going to be taking place, fans part. Let's talk about the process of training camp, right? I know a lot of you guys might know this, but let's just rehash it one more time before we dive into some of the positional battles. Okay, so training camp, you start with 90 player rosters, right? You got a massive group of guys here in terms of number of players on the team, 90 guys. You got to cut that down to 85 players by August 17th. All right, so from 27th of July to the 17th of August, you got to get down to 85 players, so you cut about 5 players. And then after that, you cut about 5 more, get down to 80 players by August 24th. And then finally, there's a massive cut getting all the way down to the official 53-man roster that the NFL requires every team to be by August 31st. And then September is when the regular season kicks off. So it is going to be crazy, folks. We're going from an 80-man roster, and you have to downsize all the way to 53 men. All right, so that is going to be insane. Who's not going to make the roster? Who's going to be on the cut? Who's on the bubble? I'll talk about all of that and more. Let's get into it. All right, so first, let's talk about some training camp battles, because we know the biggest training camp battle is at the most important position in football. That is, of course, the quarterback position between Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. I know Nick Foles is still on the roster as of now, but he is QB3. He is not going to be competing for the starting job. So I've made plenty of videos about this topic between Fields and Dalton, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because I've already talked about it, okay? Essentially, we know the biggest training camp battle is this one, right? Who's going to win this training camp battle? But another reason why I don't want to talk about it as much is I do feel like this is one of those battles where one of the guys has to fight an uphill battle, okay, versus the other guy, right? Andy Dalton was brought in here, paid about $10 million to be the starting quarterback. The Bears, Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace have done nothing but reiterate that he is their starter week 1, no doubt about it. Andy Dalton is a starter. Andy Dalton is a starter. Andy Dalton's a starter. That's all they've been saying. Matt Nagy's gone on a whole media tour and told everybody who's been asking him about who's going to be the starting quarterback, how can Justin Fields win the job. He keeps saying it's Andy Dalton's job. Okay? We heard the sentiment a few years ago when it was Mike Glennon versus Mitchell Trubisky, and Mike Glennon obviously started, but then got benched. So same thing could happen here. Hopefully we want Justin Fields to be much, much better than Mitchell Trubisky. But point is, the same scenario could play out here where Andy Dalton does start. a few games, and then he does what Andy Dalton does, fizzles out, and then Justin Fields comes in, hopefully lights the world on fire, is the franchise quarterback the Bears are looking for, and we move on. But in terms of the training camp battle, I do think the one thing to watch here is, even though Justin Fields is fighting an uphill battle, if he absolutely lights it on fire, like the entire training camp, he is excellent, just outplaying Andy Dalton. I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking about severely outplaying Andy Dalton to the point where the Bears are almost forced to start him. I do see that scenario where he could win the starting job. I don't think it's likely. I still think it's Dalton, but there is that possibility. So I'm going to be looking forward to that. But as of right now, this battle, Andy Dalton's got a stranglehold on the starting quarterback job, mainly due to the security given by Matt Nagy and the front office, okay? So that's the first positional battle in training camp. The second one that I'm looking forward to, the wide receiver room. Folks, we've got a lot of wide receivers now, all right? Let's talk about the guys that, are on the bubble. Actually, let's start with the guys that we have, okay? For sure, we know it's A-Rob, our number one. Then we have Darnell Mooney, our number two, all right? Those are our guarantees, right? We know that for a fact. After that, everything else is on the table, right? Because you've got Marquise Goodwin, who we signed this year, okay? Then we've got Damiere Byrd, who we signed this year as well in free agency from the Patriots. Then we also drafted Daz Newsome in the NFL draft this year. Then we've also got Anthony Miller, who has been a disappointment in terms of his production and injuries over his past couple of seasons. Then we, of course, have Riley Ridley, who never sees the field, barely plays. Then we've got Juwan Wims, who's been in a couple of incidents over the past couple of seasons. So that's a lot of guys right there. Now, as far as how many receivers the Bears will carry, I'm guessing it's probably going to be about 6-ish. So A-Rob and Mooney is 2 spots already. You drafted Daz Newsome. You know you're going to give him a shot, so he's going to make the team. That's 3. You signed Marquise Goodwin. He's a veteran. The Bears like him, and he's a good receiver. That's 4. I think the same thing for Damiere Byrd. I think because you signed him in free agency, I think he makes the roster. That's 5. And then now you got the last spot to go between Anthony Miller, Juwan Wims, and Riley Ridley. Okay? Unless the Bears carry more receivers. And between those 3 folks, I think for sure Juwan Wims is the odd man out. And now you're looking at between Riley Ridley and Anthony Miller. Okay? And between these 2, I think that Anthony Miller will probably have the upper advantage just because we've actually seen him produce on the field. Even though he's been inconsistent and injury prone, we've seen him produce. Riley Ridley just never gets on the field. So I don't know if they hate him or what, but it looks like Anthony Miller has a chance to not make the team in terms of the roster. You get cut straight up. But I see him sneaking in here, right? Maybe over Riley Ridley. I don't like Juwan Wims. I think he's going to get cut. He's just not worth the headache for what, he's about to say. He should have been cut, after the incident last year, but that's another point. So the wide receiver battle is another one to watch, all right? Number 3, the running back room. We have our lead back in David Montgomery. I'm not talking about that. I think he's going to have a great year. I'm talking about the number 2 spot behind him. Tariq Cohen's coming back from injury, all right? He's missed a lot of time. How is he going to look this season, okay? Is he going to be the same explosive space back that we're used to seeing from Tariq Cohen, or has he lost some of that agility and elusiveness? We're bringing in Damian Williams, who is a veteran who's won a Super Bowl, potentially could have won the Super Bowl MVP if his name was Patrick Mahomes, and he's the guy who can do everything, right? He can run, he can catch, he can do it all. And does that give him the upper advantage over Tariq Cohen to become the number 2 running back on this Bears team? So that is going to be interesting to watch. I do think the Bears find a way to utilize all 3 backs. Tariq Cohen, much more of a third down back, if you will, a space back, right? He can catch like crazy out of the backfield. Damian Williams can do a little bit of both, but they want to manage his reps because he's a veteran. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Who's going to be the number 2 running back, okay? Couple more battles here. Cornerback position. Let's switch over to the defense, all right? Kyle Fuller, he's gone. We know that, so that means that there's a huge hole at the number 1 cornerback spot. We're assuming Jalen Johnson fills in. Hopefully he does fill in admirably. He had a great rookie season, but if Jalen Johnson is the number 1, who's the number 2, right? That's the question here because we got a bunch of guys, and that's it, just a bunch of guys. You signed Desmond Trufant, who's over the hill, right? He's not in his prime. Then you got Thomas Graham, who you drafted this year. Is he going to be ready to be the starting cornerback opposite of Jalen Johnson? Duke Shelley, all right? Artie Burns, who I believe missed last year. So you have a bunch of guys, but that number 2 cornerback spot still needs to be solidified. And finally, the offensive line, folks. How is the offensive line going to hold up? Are they going to look much improved than last year? I hope so. We invested a lot in them. I'm curious to see how Tevin Jenkins does up against our defensive line, which is one of the best in the NFL, right? You're going up against guys like Khalil Mack. That's really going to test you. So I'm curious to see Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum. And speaking of Larry Borum, the guy in front of him in Jermaine Afidi, is he going to be able to hold off Larry Borum for that right tackle job, right? So we have so many questions for the offensive line as well. I'm curious to find that out, right? How do the rookies look? Are they going to outperform the veterans? Are we going to see a changing of the guard here? And I'm glad that they get to go up against a very good D-line, because they're not going to go up against that caliber of D-lines every week in the NFL. The Bears have one of the best, all right? So I love to see that. So there you have it, folks. Training camp preview, taking a look at everything in terms of positional battles that I mentioned: cornerback, quarterback, running back, receiver, guys on the roster bubble, right? Anthony Miller could be one of them. It could be Jawan Wims. So it's going to be fun, exciting. I can't wait. There's going to be a ton of updates. I'm going to be here to cover all that. But tell me this. What are you looking forward to most in training camp? Is it a positional battle? Is it a certain player you're looking forward to? Is it a rookie? Who or what are you looking forward to in training camp? Leave a comment down below if you what are you looking most forward to, and if you agree or disagree with some of these positional battles. As always, thanks for watching.